At its peak, one empire ruled over 458 million people, roughly a quarter of the entire human population. It controlled 13.01 million square miles of land across every single continent on Earth. Its navy patrolled every ocean. Its language became the world's lingua franca. Its currency, the pound, became the world's reserve. Its railways carved through continents it did not build. They called it the empire on which the sun never sets. But here is what they don't always tell you: how it began in desperation, not destiny. How it was built on the blood of millions who never consented. How it fractured not from a single blow, but from 100 cracks it spent centuries ignoring. This is the full, honest, uncomfortable, extraordinary story of the British Empire. Stay with me, because by the end of this video you'll understand why every modern border, economy, and conflict traces a line back to London. It is 1485. England is exhausted. 30 years of civil war, the Wars of the Roses, between the houses of York and Lancaster have drained the treasury, depopulated the nobility, and left the island nation politically fragile. The man who emerges from that wreckage is Henry VII, first of the Tudor dynasty, a king so frugal that historians nicknamed him the miser on the throne. Henry VII ruled from 1485 to 1509. He did not die violently or lose power to treason. He simply wore himself out, weakened by tuberculosis and a grief that never left him after the death of his beloved wife, Elizabeth of York, in 1503. He died in his bed, which for a medieval king was almost miraculous. Henry had 2 wives in his lifetime, actually only one, Elizabeth of York. He was, by the standards of his era, a faithful husband. Together they had 8 children, though only 4 survived infancy. His eldest son, Arthur, died young. His second son, the one history would never forget, Henry, inherited everything. Henry VII's great contribution to empire was not conquest, it was navigation. In 1496, he commissioned the Venetian explorer John Cabot to sail west. In 1497, Cabot reached North America, specifically present-day Newfoundland, becoming the first European after the Norse to make documented contact with mainland North America. England had planted a quiet flag in the New World. Nobody yet understood what that would mean. One small commission. 500 years of consequences. Henry VIII, the Pivot King, 1509 to 1547. If Henry VII lit the ember, Henry VIII threw open the windows. Henry VIII ruled for 37 years. He is famous for 6 wives, and every schoolchild learns the rhyme. Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. But Henry's significance to the empire goes far beyond matrimony. His wives, their fates, and their roles. Catherine of Aragon, married 1509, annulled 1533, gave him a daughter, Mary. Henry's obsession with producing a male heir cracked the Catholic Church's grip on England. Anne Boleyn, married 1533, executed 1536, mother of Elizabeth I, accused of adultery and treason. Most historians today believe the charges were fabricated. She was beheaded at the Tower of London. Jane Seymour, married 1536, died 1537, gave him the son he craved, Edward. She died of complications after childbirth. Henry mourned her longest. Anne of Cleves, married 1540, annulled same year. Henry reportedly found her unattractive in person after being charmed by her portrait. The marriage was annulled after 6 months. Catherine Howard, married 1540, executed 1542. Likely a teenager when she married the aging king. Executed for alleged adultery. Catherine Parr, married 1543, survived Henry, the Wise One. Helped reconcile Henry with his daughters and shaped the education of the future Elizabeth I. Henry's most lasting imperial act was the break with Rome. When the Pope refused to annul his first marriage, Henry declared himself supreme head of the Church of England in 1534. This single act, the English Reformation, was not primarily about theology. It was about power. And it would define England's identity, separate it from Catholic Spain and France, and eventually justify its colonial rivalry with those Catholic empires. Henry's kinsmen and court were a battlefield of ambition. His chief minister Thomas Cromwell managed the Reformation machinery, until Henry had him executed in 1540 for engineering the disastrous Anne of Cleves marriage. His Chancellor Thomas More refused to support the break with Rome and was beheaded in 1535. Henry surrounded himself with brilliance and then destroyed it when it inconvenienced him. Henry left 3 children and a fractured kingdom. Each would rule. Each would reshape England differently. Edward VI was 9 years old when he became king. He was sickly, likely suffering from tuberculosis, and died at 15. His reign was managed by regents. First his uncle Edward Seymour, Duke of Somerset, then John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland. Both men ultimately went to the scaffold. England under Edward deepened the Protestant Reformation. Mary I reversed everything. She was Henry's Catholic daughter, daughter of Catherine of Aragon, and she was determined to bring England back to Rome. In 5 years on the throne, she burned nearly 300 Protestants at the stake, earning the name Bloody Mary. She married Philip II of Spain, a union deeply unpopular with the English people. She died childless in 1558, possibly from uterine or ovarian cancer. And then she arrived. One woman. 45 years. The empire's foundation. Elizabeth I ruled from 1558 to 1603. She never married, earning the title, the Virgin Queen. Historians have speculated endlessly on why. Some believe she was psychologically scarred by watching her father execute her mother. Some believe she deliberately used her unmarried status as a political weapon, keeping rival European powers perpetually dangling with potential marriage alliances. She herself once said she was married to England. Her refusal to marry meant no direct heir, but it also meant 45 years of undivided political will. Elizabeth's reign saw the explosion of English exploration and the first serious colonial enterprises. Sir Francis Drake circumnavigated the globe, 1577 to 1580, the second man in history to do so, after Magellan's expedition. Sir Walter Raleigh attempted the first English colony in North America at Roanoke in 1585, which mysteriously vanished. Sir John Hawkins pioneered the English slave trade, trafficking enslaved Africans to the Spanish colonies. The empire's most brutal economic engine was being assembled. Elizabeth I didn't just rule England. She built the blueprint of empire. Elizabeth's challenge came in 1588, the Spanish Armada. Philip II of Spain sent 130 ships and 30,000 men to invade England and restore Catholicism. The English fleet, aided by storms that English Protestants called the Protestant Wind, defeated and scattered the Armada. England's naval supremacy, the foundation of all future empire, was established. Elizabeth died in 1603, childless, alone, reportedly unable to lie down in her final days, sitting upright on cushions until she simply stopped. She left no children. She left an empire in embryo. The empire takes shape: Stuart's Civil War and the first colonies. James I, James VI of Scotland, united the English and Scottish crowns in 1603. He ruled until 1625. Under his reign, the Virginia Company established Jamestown in 1607, the first permanent English settlement in America. The settlers nearly starved. Of the original 500 colonists, only 60 survived the starving time of 1609 to 1610. James had a complicated personal life. He was widely believed, and many historians agree, to have had intimate relationships with male favorites, particularly Robert Carr and George Villiers, Duke of Buckingham. He had 3 surviving children with his wife and of Denmark. His son Charles would inherit a kingdom heading toward catastrophe. Charles I ruled from 1625 to 1649. He believed absolutely in the divine right of kings, that his authority came from God and could not be questioned by Parliament. Parliament disagreed violently. The result was the English Civil War: Royalists, Cavaliers, against parliamentarians, Roundheads, 1642 to 1651. Cities burned. Families split. And in January 1649, something unprecedented happened. For the first time in European history, a reigning king was put on trial by his own people and executed. Charles I was beheaded on January 30, 1649. He wore 2 shirts to his execution so that his shivering in the cold would not be mistaken for fear. His last word reportedly was "remember." England became a republic, the Commonwealth, under Oliver Cromwell, a Puritan general. Cromwell ruled with iron discipline, banning Christmas celebrations, shutting theaters, and crushing rebellion in Ireland with a brutality that Irish history has never forgotten. His campaigns at Drogheda and Wexford in 1649 resulted in the massacre of thousands of soldiers and civilians. When Cromwell died in 1658, his son Richard briefly succeeded him, and immediately proved incapable. The monarchy was restored. Charles II, son of the executed king, returned from exile in 1660. Charles II ruled from 1660 to 1685. He was charming, sexually prolific, and politically shrewd. He had no legitimate children but acknowledged at least 12 illegitimate ones. He presided over the Great Plague of London, 1665, and the Great Fire of London, 1666. He also oversaw significant colonial expansion, the acquisition of New Amsterdam, renamed New York, from the Dutch, and the establishment of Carolina and Pennsylvania. His brother James II succeeded him in 1685, and lasted only 3 years. James II was Catholic in a Protestant nation. His attempts to promote Catholic tolerance alarmed Parliament enough that they invited his Protestant son-in-law, William of Orange, to invade from the Netherlands. William did so in 1688. James fled. This event, bloodless in England though not in Ireland or Scotland, became known as the Glorious Revolution. England's constitutional monarchy was now firmly established. A king could reign, but Parliament would rule. Queen Anne (1702 to 1714) presided over the Act of Union in 1707, formally merging England and Scotland into Great Britain. She was pregnant 17 times. Not one child survived her. She was the last Stuart monarch. The Stuarts gave way to the Hanoverians, a German dynasty invited to rule because of their Protestant blood. The first four Georges would oversee the most explosive expansion in imperial history, and its most embarrassing loss. George I, 1714 to 1727, spoke barely any English. He was German, and he stayed largely German in temperament. Real power shifted decisively toward the Prime Minister. Robert Walpole is generally credited as Britain's first effective Prime Minister. The empire expanded in the Caribbean and India. George II, 1727 to 1760, oversaw the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, arguably the world's first truly global war fought across 5 continents. Britain fought France, Spain, and their allies. The outcome reshaped the world. Britain gained Canada, Florida, and dominant influence in India after Robert Clive's victory at the Battle of Plassey in 1757. The Battle of Plassey. One afternoon, one betrayed Indian general, and the destiny of 300 million people changed forever. The Battle of Plassey was won partly because Mir Jafar, a commander of the Nawab of Bengal, was bribed by Clive to betray his own commander. Some historians argue that without this treachery, the British East India Company could never have taken Bengal. The truth is, the battle lasted hours, not days. Britain now controlled Bengal, one of the richest territories on earth. Its silk, cotton, and indigo flowed to London. Its taxes funded British wars. George III, 1760 to 1820, had the longest reign of any king to that point, 60 years. But his reign contained the empire's most stinging defeat, the American Revolution. 13 colonies, tired of being taxed without representation, declared independence in 1776. Britain lost the war in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris. It was humiliating. But, and this is the part that rarely gets told, it did not slow the empire. If anything, losing America redirected British imperial energy toward Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. Captain James Cook made 3 voyages of exploration, 1768 to 1779, mapping Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, and much of the Pacific. His voyages opened the floodgates for British settlement in the Pacific, settlement that decimated indigenous populations through disease, displacement, and violence. George III suffered from episodes of mental illness, now believed to be porphyria, a metabolic disorder, and was eventually declared incapacitated. His son ruled as Prince Regent from 1811. He is the Mad King George of popular culture. George III had 15 children with Queen Charlotte, one of the largest royal families in British history. His sons and daughters married into European royal houses, spreading British dynastic influence across the continent. The Napoleonic Wars, 1803 to 1815, dominated the reigns of George III and his regent son. Britain spent 22 years at war with Napoleon's France. The financial cost was staggering. The human cost was devastating. But the outcome, Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo in 1815, left Britain as the undisputed dominant global power. The abolition of the slave trade came in 1807, under William Wilberforce's decades of campaigning. Slavery itself was abolished throughout the empire in 1833, but the British government compensated slaveholders, not the enslaved. The last payment on that compensation loan was made in 2015. British taxpayers, including black British citizens, were still paying for it. Britain abolished slavery in 1833, then paid the slaveholders £20 million in compensation. The enslaved got nothing. She was 18 years old when they crowned her. Queen Victoria ruled from 1837 to 1901, 63 years, the longest reign in British history to that point. She was not initially taken seriously. Small in stature, barely 5 feet tall, newly crowned, politically inexperienced. History would revise that underestimation. Victoria married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in 1840. By all accounts, it was a genuine love match. They had 9 children, and through strategic marriages, those children connected to virtually every royal house in Europe. Victoria was called the grandmother of Europe. When Albert died in 1861, Victoria was devastated. She wore black for the remaining 40 years of her life. Some historians believe her prolonged, visible grief actually strengthened public sympathy for the monarchy at a time when Republican sentiment was growing in Britain. Victoria's kinsman. Prince Albert, Victoria's true political partner before his death. He modernized the royal household, championed science, and organized the Great Exhibition of 1851, the world's first international exposition held in London's Crystal Palace, showcasing British industrial supremacy. Her son Bertie, future Edward VII, spent most of Victoria's reign in political exclusion. Victoria blamed him irrationally for Albert's death. Albert had rushed to Cambridge in bad weather to scold Bertie about a romantic scandal, fell ill, and died weeks later. Her daughter Vicky became Empress of Germany. Her son was Kaiser Wilhelm II, the man whose war would begin destroying the empire Victoria built. The Victorian era was the height of British industrial power. Britain produced more steel, more coal, more textiles, more ships than any other nation on earth. The steam engine, the telegraph, the railway, British inventions and British investment wired the world. In 1880, 40% of the world's manufactured goods came from Britain alone. One island. 40% of everything. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, called by Germany's Bismarck, invited European powers to partition Africa. Britain received the largest share. By 1914, Britain controlled Egypt, Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Rhodesia, Sierra Leone, Gold Coast, Ghana, and more. 40% of Africa's land mass flew the Union Jack. Not a single African nation was invited to the Berlin Conference. The British conquest of these territories was rarely peaceful. The Anglo-Zulu War of 1879 saw 20,000 Zulu warriors defeated by British rifles and artillery, but not before the Zulus inflicted one of the worst defeats in British military history at Isandlwana, where approximately 1,300 British soldiers were killed in a single day. The British press was astonished. They had not expected Africans to fight back this effectively. The Second Boer War, 1899 to 1902, fought against Dutch-descended settlers in South Africa, introduced the world to the British concentration camp. Over 26,000 Boer women and children, and at least 14,000 black Africans, died in British concentration camps from disease and starvation. This is a fact that British school curricula frequently omit. Britain ran concentration camps 40 years before Nazi Germany. In South Africa. Right now, it barely appears in British history books. India, the crown jewel. The Indian Rebellion of 1857, called the Indian Mutiny in British textbooks and the First War of Independence in Indian ones, began when Indian soldiers, sepoys, in the British East India Company's army refused to use cartridges rumored to be greased with pig and cow fat, offensive to both Muslim and Hindu soldiers. It grew into a nationwide uprising. The British suppressed it with extreme violence, including tying rebels to cannon barrels and firing them. After suppression, the British Crown took direct control of India from the East India Company. Victoria was declared Empress of India in 1876. India's GDP, which was approximately 24% of global output in 1700, had fallen to under 4% by 1950 after 200 years of British rule. The economist Utsa Patnaik has estimated that Britain drained $45 trillion from India between 1765 and 1938. Edward VII, 1901 to 1910, was 59 when he became king, the longest a Prince of Wales had ever waited. He was a notorious socialite, had numerous affairs. His wife Alexandra bore this with public dignity, and was credited, possibly exaggeratedly, with using personal diplomacy to ease tensions with France, producing the Entente Cordiale of 1904. He died of bronchitis in 1910, a habitual heavy smoker. He was succeeded by his son George V. George V, 1910 to 1936, was a Navy man who had never expected to be king. His older brother Albert Victor died in 1892. George married Mary of Teck, a composed, formidable woman who became one of the monarchy's great anchors. They had 6 children. And then, the world caught fire. June 28, 1914. One assassination. The empire's beginning of the end. World War I, 1914 to 1918, drew the British Empire into its most devastating conflict. Over 1 million soldiers from the Empire, India, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the Caribbean, fought and died for a Britain that did not grant them equal citizenship. The Battle of the Somme, 1916, 57,470 British casualties on the first day alone, the bloodiest single day in British military history. Over 4 months, over 1 million were wounded or killed on both sides. George V made a consequential personal decision in 1917. Faced with anti-German sentiment, he changed the royal family's name from the German Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to the distinctly English Windsor. His cousin, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, reportedly joked that he looked forward to seeing the merry wives of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. The war ended in 1918 with Britain on the winning side, but at catastrophic cost. 700,000 British soldiers dead. The national debt quadrupled. A generation gone. The Irish War of Independence, 1919 to 1921, resulted in the partition of Ireland and the creation of the Irish Free State in 1922, the empire's first significant territorial loss to nationalist uprising. George V twilight. George V died in January 1936. His physician's diary, released decades later, revealed that the doctor administered lethal injections of cocaine and morphine to hasten the king's death, time to be announced in the morning newspapers rather than the less dignified evening editions. History is rarely as dignified as it appears. Edward VIII succeeded his father but ruled for less than a year, abdicating in December 1936 to marry American divorcee Wallis Simpson. He is the only British monarch to voluntarily abdicate. Edward was later suspected of Nazi sympathies. German intelligence documents captured after World War II suggest he may have been willing to serve as a puppet king under Hitler. These files remain partially classified. The man who never wanted the crown now wore it at the worst possible moment. George VI, 1936 to 1952, was shy, stammered severely, and was deeply unprepared for kingship. His wife, Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, later the Queen Mother, became the steadying force beside him. World War II, 1939 to 1945, brought German bombs to London. George VI and Queen Elizabeth famously refused to leave Buckingham Palace, saying, "The children won't go without me. I won't leave without the king. And the king will never leave." Buckingham Palace was bombed 9 times. The empire mobilized again. 2.5 million Indians served in the British Army in World War II, the largest volunteer army in history. Australians, Canadians, Africans, and Caribbean soldiers all fought for an empire whose promises to them remained largely unfulfilled. High voltage, over 3 million Indians died in the Bengal famine of 1943. Winston Churchill, the man celebrated as Britain's savior, refused to divert food to starving Indians. He reportedly said India's famine was their own fault for breeding like rabbits. This is documented in Churchill's own war cabinet minutes and in the work of historian Madhusri Mukherjee. It remains one of the most contested and suppressed facts in British imperial history. The war ended in 1945. Britain won. But it was broke, exhausted, and holding an empire it could no longer afford. Indian independence came in 1947. The partition of India and Pakistan, drawn hastily by British lawyer Cyril Ratcliffe in 5 weeks, resulted in one of history's largest forced migrations and up to 2 million deaths in communal violence. George VI died in 1952 of lung cancer, likely caused by heavy smoking. His daughter, Elizabeth II, became queen at 25. Elizabeth II, 1952 to 2022, oversaw the dismantling of most of the empire, not by choice of the crown, but by the unstoppable momentum of independence movements, the cost of maintaining colonial control, and the moral force of people who refused to remain colonized. Ghana, 1957, first sub-Saharan African nation to gain independence from Britain, under Kwame Nkrumah. Nigeria, 1960. Kenya, 1963, following the brutal suppression of the Mau Mau uprising, in which thousands of Kenyans were detained, tortured, and killed in British concentration camps, a fact Britain formally acknowledged and apologized for only in 2013. Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, 1962. Hong Kong, 1997, the last major territory returned to China. By 2000, the British Empire that had once governed a quarter of the world retained only 14 small overseas territories, including Gibraltar and the Falkland Islands. The sun had set. In 1945, Britain ruled 700 million people. By 2000, 250,000. That is the speed of empire's collapse. Science and technology. The British Empire's Industrial Revolution, 1760 to 1840, transformed humanity. The steam engine, James Watt; the railway, the telegraph, vaccination, Edward Jenner; evolution theory, Charles Darwin, naturalist aboard HMS Beagle; penicillin, Alexander Fleming; the World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee in the post-imperial period. British scientific contributions are undeniable. But the empire also suppressed indigenous science and medicine. The British deliberately dismantled Indian textile industries, the finest in the world, to protect British mills. India was a net exporter of finished textiles in 1700. By 1850, it was a net importer of British cloth. Military capacity and weaponry. The Royal Navy was the foundational weapon of empire. By the mid-1800s, Britain had more warships than the next 2 largest navies combined. The Maxim gun, the world's first automatic machine gun, invented in 1884, gave British colonial forces devastating technological superiority over indigenous armies. Hilaire Belloc captured it chillingly: "Whatever happens, we have got the Maxim gun and they have not." Economics. The British Empire invented modern capitalism's infrastructure. Joint stock companies, central banking, Bank of England founded 1694, global commodity trading and insurance markets. Lloyd's of London originated in a coffee house. These innovations financed conquest and structured the world economy. The British pound was the world's reserve currency from approximately 1815 until the end of World War II, when it was superseded by the US dollar at Bretton Woods in 1944. Language and culture. English is today the world's most widely spoken second language, with approximately 1.5 billion speakers. This is directly attributable to the British Empire's educational policies, which in India, for instance, deliberately replaced Persian and Sanskrit as administrative languages with English to create a class of Indians who were, in Macaulay's 1835 words, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. The most powerful colonial weapon was never the gun. It was the classroom. Human cost, the honest accounting. Scholars including Professor Shashi Tharoor, India, Caroline Elkins, Kenya, and Sven Lindqvist, General Colonial Violence, have documented what the empire extracted. $45 trillion drained from India alone, Utsa Patnaik's estimate. 10 to 15 million deaths in the Congo under related European colonial violence. 3+ million deaths in the Bengal famine of 1943. Millions enslaved from West Africa. Estimated 3.1 million Africans transported on British ships before abolition. Forced displacement of Aboriginal Australians, Maori, Indigenous Canadians, and Native Americans within British territory. As of 2023, Britain has not issued a formal national apology for slavery or colonial violence, though individual institutions, including the Church of England and Cambridge University, have begun making reparative commitments. The world the empire made. Walk around the modern world and you cannot escape the empire's fingerprints. The borders of the modern Middle East were drawn by British and French officials in 1916, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and confirmed at Versailles in 1919. The artificial borders of Iraq, Jordan, Israel/Palestine, Kuwait, and others reflect British strategic interest, not ethnic, cultural, or historic boundaries. Many of today's Middle Eastern conflicts trace directly to these lines. The Commonwealth of Nations, 56 countries, 2.5 billion people, is the post-imperial organization connecting former British territories. It has no governing power, but functions as a diplomatic and cultural network. Speculation. Its long-term relevance in a multipolar world is increasingly debated. The United States of America speaks English, follows common law, and built its initial constitutional structures on British political philosophy, Locke, Hobbes, Magna Carta. The American Revolution was an argument between Englishmen about English rights. The Declaration of Independence is, in one reading, a British document turned against Britain. Cricket, played in over 100 countries, is perhaps the most peculiar gift of empire, a gentleman's game that became the passionate obsession of India, Pakistan, the Caribbean, and Australia, nations that now consistently beat England at their own game. How the sun finally set. Empires do not fall in a single moment. They erode. The British Empire fell from debt. World War I and World War II bankrupted Britain. By 1945, Britain owed the United States $4.33 billion, not paid off until December 31, 2006. It could no longer afford empire. Nationalism. In India, in Africa, in Ireland, in the Caribbean, people who had been told their cultures were inferior had read enough British books to know the language of rights, and they used it. America's rise. The U.S. demanded Britain decolonize as a condition of Marshall Plan support and post-war alliance. The Suez Crisis of 1956, where Britain and France tried one last imperial adventure in Egypt, ended in humiliation when the U.S. forced them to withdraw. Internal exhaustion. The British public, traumatized by 2 world wars, was ready to build a welfare state, the National Health Service, founded 1948, rather than maintain distant colonies. Moral delegitimization. After Auschwitz, racial hierarchy as justification for empire became politically impossible to defend publicly, even if private attitudes shifted more slowly. The last formal imperial possession of significant size, Hong Kong, was returned to China at midnight, June 30, 1997. Governor Chris Patton wept on the dock. The Union Jack was folded and placed in a box. The empire that had begun with a small, desperate island nation commissioning a Venetian sailor to find new routes to wealth, ended with a ceremony on a rainy dock in the South China Sea. High voltage. The empire that conquered the world could not survive the world it had created. The honest verdict. History does not ask us to choose simple verdicts. It demands that we hold complexity without flinching. The British Empire built railways in India, and then charged Indians to ride them while extracting the profits to London. It abolished the slave trade, and paid the slave owners. It spread the rule of law, and then exempted its own colonies from it. It produced Darwin and Shakespeare and Newton, and also produced Amritsar, the Bengal famine, and Kenyan torture camps. None of this is contradiction. All of it is empire. What we owe, not as guilt but as intellectual honesty, is to see it whole. To know that the English language we are speaking in this video was in many places imposed by force. To know that borders causing wars today were drawn by officials who never set foot there. To know that the wealth that industrialized the West was drawn, in significant part, from the unwilling labor of peoples who were never compensated. And to know, equally, that the people who lived under that empire were never passive. They resisted. They negotiated. They survived. They rebuilt. They thrived. Mahatma Gandhi used British legal training against Britain. Kwame Nkrumah used British education to expel British power. The Caribbean cricket team used the empire's own game to humiliate it for decades. History belongs to no single continent, no single people, and no single narrative. The British Empire is one of the most consequential human stories ever told. And now you know it. The greatest empires in history didn't fall because they were weak. They fell because they forgot that power is borrowed, never owned. Remember that. Subscribe. Share this story. Because history remembered honestly is how we build a world that doesn't repeat it. Like, subscribe, comment. Which part of this history shocked you most? Next video, the Mughal Empire, the world's greatest dynasty nobody taught you about.